Hello, my warriors. Today, chapter 52, 1066. It's not the ultimate chapter. We're not the end yet. We're closing in. Those of you who know, those of you who can guess where this is going, 1066 is the year. This is where it's all been leading. And herein I shall describe to you what happened. So much of what we're about to get through in these next couple of chapters is exactly the way things happened. I took liberties, but I was as faithful to the truth as I could be. So I poured myself a wonderful cup of tea, and tonight, right now, we're going to do chapter. And you know what? Yeah, lead right into it. So then, chapter 52, 1066. The army grew every day, spake the skald. Harold and his great host sailed along the coast as soldiers arrived to join with him and his just cause. He smiled at the incredible force being mustered. It was a cold and blustery September day. Harald Sigurdsson, the hard ruler and king of all Norway, wore his fine fur cloak, his impenetrable mail shirt Emma, his crowned helm, and the thickest pair of gloves he could find. The winds that blew from the sea and swept over the ships were incredible, and they cut through most clothing without regard. It had been a tumultuous year, though that seemed to be true for every year of his reign. He had no need to quell any rebellion now, or to punish dissenters. Instead, Harold had learned from Tostig Godwinson of England that the king was dead. Edward the Confessor died on January the 5th of the year our Lord 1066. The seat of England was open, and everyone wanted it. Tostig's brother Harold had been chosen from the nobles and powerful among the English, and he now pretended the throne. But Harold of Norway still had his own claim to press. The deal struck between Magnus the Good and Harthacnut of England entitled either to the other's lands and positions upon death. Excuse me. And yet upon those deaths nothing was collected. That claim, however, fell to Harold by inheritance, and he would never forget it. And then the king died, and some pretender tried to take the throne of England. Between March and September, then our King Harold collected once more the full might of Norway. But this time they gathered in the greatest strength that had ever been seen from the kingdom. 10,000 men and 300 longships set sail for the invasion in early September and left behind their homes, making for the coast of the contestable state of England. First stopped we in the isles between the Scots and the Norse, there to get us some more warriors. Our time there resupplying was not long. Harold wanted us gone away as soon as was possible. We stopped then in the lands of the Scots, and their king, knowing of our sailing, no doubt from the tongues of Tostig, supplied us 2,000 more warriors. The army grew every day. First upon the English coasts, we started to raid and to pillage from the Tees. Many settlements did we fall upon and sack with ruthless might and grievous plundering. Many of the places we went to see surrendered as soon as they saw our ships, and that was well done. Harold meant for to be their king after all. But the seaside city of Skartaborg would not bend to our presence, and that was not well done. Once they were done with in defense and resistance, Harold ordained to put the whole place to fire and destroyed the city. The fires of Skartaborg will long be remembered. None any longer will go there. And now here we stand, said the skald, the 10,000 warriors and fighters of Harold of Norway, here to take England from those who try and take it other than the legitimate claim of our king. And there are many who decide it is their place to take this land. Chances are you all heard of this Frankian dux called the Bastard, this William of Normandy, sitting across the channel to the south and staring into the impassability of the storms. None but our people know how well to fight through a storm in the sea. Harold listened to the chronicler who told the story of himself. His conquests and adventures spoken of with great emphasis even as they occurred. He stood with folded arms and a smile upon his face at the tale. Here he was, a 50-year-old man, his hair still a golden yellow and thick upon his head, and his greatest triumph was only weeks from him. At the invitation of Tostig, a detail he'd make sure was left out of the stories. He'd come to England to secure once more what had existed under Canute the Great for some small amount of time. His North Sea empire would stand as a glowing edifice in the north. The northern lands and coasts of Scotland were already under North influence, and now England would come under heel to unify all the island between into his empire, a feat even the Romans had not accomplished. He decided to retire to his tent for the night. His wife Elisif was here with him, and he'd spend the evening with his beloved as much as he could. War was a hard thing, but spending one's time fucking in the evening made everything clear, reinvigorated one's knowledge for life. Håkan, Urk, come, I'm going to bed. As he turned, though, the whole of the fire and the crowd who'd come to drink his wine passing before his gaze. He thought he saw a face he recognized. Instantly, Harold stopped and slowly looked back to see if he had indeed seen, the face of the ghost that had haunted some of his darker thoughts for the last 20 years. The face wasn't there. The leader of the ghostly raiders, the white bear, cloaked warrior. Years ago, he'd sent out secret spies to ask quiet questions among his more prominent trading posts if this ghost was known. That had come to nothing. With a knot in his stomach at the memory of that man, the stare upon his face, he finally turned away and left the revels of the war band's night. Long would they carouse and sing. This was war, after all, and they each were the glad-spirited Norse. Fitbjorn straightened back from where he'd hid his head behind Ragnar. The king had recognized him. That was certain. And he had recognized the king. This was the first time he had seen the man so close in nearly 20 years. He was old, distinguished, and now he was doomed. Harold Sigurdsson would die soon at Fitbjorn's hand. He knew he'd have to wait for the guard to be distracted or drunk or asleep or something. He had welcomed the summons to bring his longship and 100 warriors here to fight for Harold's claim to the English throne. Welcomed it eagerly. All right, laddie, I think he's gone now. You can turn around. Fitbjorn did so with a smile on his face. This is the biggest gathering of warrior skins in the history of our people, I think. For an invasion, certainly. Was Nisane this as big? I do not think so. All men and women who name themselves warriors are here. Harold is here. I will find that man, Stephen. If he lives, he's here. They both left the great fire and walked for the camp their crew had made. My revenge shall be complete, father. The excitement at the prospect filled him. He walked through the throngs of many, many Norse and Danish and Scottish warriors and fighters. Each were working or preparing something for the war, but each were in high spirited and celebratory mood. Some of these people he recognized. He walked here past a man whose face he was certain he'd seen in Sicily. There was a warrior that he'd had fought with during the Danish raids. There was a woman he had drunk with one night in Miklagard. These were all his people. It was quite a strong thing to feel at the center of a gathering of people who would fight and kill to protect you. It filled him with a strong desire to fight and protect them back. Soon again, he would fight in the shield wall, the Skaldborg, with these proud and brave warriors. His vengeance would be done, his father's place secured, his own ascension to Valhall would be assured, and his destiny would arrive. What better a time in history than here and now for the changing of kings? Edward of England had died. Harold Godwinson took his place, and Harold would take his. The confluence of fates that flowed through this land like a torrent pushed through the powers and the fates. The magic here was strong, no doubt, and that force would drive his destiny to greatest heights. He was sure of it. Who wants a drink? Asked a woman from a nearby fire. Tents were arrayed somewhat haphazardly as the structure of the army was done in the manner of the Norse raids. Each lord or noble or warrior with a longship brought and provided for their own crew, and they all tented in circular camps. I'll have one, Ragnar said, diverting to meet her. Fitbjorn rolled his eyes, but followed with a grin no matter. These crews were small armies unto themselves, and would be accustomed to working and fighting with each other, but fully capable of folding in with a larger army as well. All the captains of the ships were each of them leaders in the army by default, and the king allowed them each a great deal of autonomy so long as they obeyed the overall command. It was a highly effective system and had worked for all time. Here then, the woman said, passing the fresh poured cup to Ragnar. Every camp here then were made up of tents brought by the ships, and all tended to keep their own crews when setting a place. This made for an assembly where every crew became like a small village. Each were unique to a region, though some warriors from the Byzantine land still mingled among the crews from Harold's invitation all those years ago. This is good. Where did you get that? Grown in the fields near Trondheim, the graying woman said proudly. Summer blackberries made like wine. Aye, it does taste like wine. The woman poured herself a horn. Fell in love with the stuff while I was a Varangian, and then realized my home had been making something similar for generations. You're a Varangian? Ragnar asked, excited. I got back from Miklagard last year. Oh, the time I spent out in the Levant were some of the best I ever remember. What's your name, lassie? I'm Greta Brighthair. Your hair's black, with no small assemblage of silver, lassie. She laughed. But it was put on fire once during a raid. I didn't notice since I had someone that I needed to kill. Brighthair. That explains why it's black too, Ragnar laughed. Greta smirked with him and drank her own wine. I'm going back to our camp, Ragnar, Fitbjorn said. Enjoy making your new friends. Ragnar acted as though he'd not heard him. So engaged was he with his conversation with the beautiful woman. Along his path for the Brynolfs, Inga's passion, and the lumbering cows' camp, he came across many songs. There were skalds telling tales around the fires. Food was being eaten, and drinks were shared. All the warriors from the different regions each had some local fare that they were sure was better than everyone else's, and each were ready to prove it. He saw warriors from the far east crossing the twisting paths to other camps and trading casks of mead for songs or dried meats or bread. There were horses being stabled and men and women passing everywhere around him. Fitbjorn arrived at his own collection of tents that his longships had made. There was no delineation between those who rode upon the English Passion or the lumbering cow and where the tents were set. They each had a place on the ships that they didn't vary from. But here at camp, it was wherever they wanted to set themselves as long as they were together. 3 fires had been built up, and warriors stood or sat around them, drinking, eating, laughing, and generally making merry. There were dozens of warriors from other ships that Fitbjorn didn't recognize, and many of his own were not here among them. "White Bear," shouted Ulf, "come and have a drink with us." He smiled and walked over to the fire. "What is it you are eating? I think I need some to eat first." "Chicken. They run wild and free around this country. Gods, it's hot." He flapped his collar some. "I've had chicken. It is tasty. And I think the heat in this country is amazing." He took a wooden plate in hand and stuffed some chicken into his mouth. "It is near winter, and it is this warm still. Once we have control of this land, we should set ourselves here and live in England. Imagine growing in this soil." "That is a tempting idea," Ulf said contemplatively. "This is Ursa and Dagan, both from the Rus." The man and woman that he introduced looked like well-worn fighters, all dressed in tunic and breeches. "We fought with you at Nyso," Dagan said. "Not in your rank, but we fought in the battle." "What a mess that was," Fitbjorn replied. "Aye, but we won that mess. That was my largest battle," Ursa said. "I slew many men that day." She grinned in excitement, and Dagan put an arm around her shoulder and then kissed the other side of her head. "I'm glad for you both. What ship are you with here?" "We sail on the Brekenoff, strong ship that goes out north from our lands. Can only go in summer for ice. Is so cold. Colder than even Norway." "Sometime, yes. We have much good cold in our land of Rus." "Aye, well, what think you of this plan to move here and live in England? There should be much place for it. What we carve here from the Northumbrian lands will be ready for our landing. There is good farming fields to take, and we can enjoy the fine weather all the years." "This plan makes me smile much," Dagan said in his broken form of the language. "What do you think of all that?" Ulf said. "Our children all being English." He laughed. "That would be a strange reversal of fortune in this world. What a strangeness fate would be if I were ever to have children." "Oh, I'm sorry, White Bear," Ulf said, remembering Sidun and Niels and what had befallen them. "Don't be. Remember what we are here for. Now I'm ready for a drink," Fitbjorn said. A chair was brought for their lord, and they sat. And he sat. They spent the night telling story and singing songs, as they were often like to do. They ate and drank and arrived at fanciful plans for the future of their people. In the morning, late in the morning, all were rousing slowly. There would be no march today, as they were here acting the standing army, ready to march when needed, but holding for the moment and preparing for the violence that was sure to come. A trader had roamed by earlier, who had brought wares and goods from all the corners of the world, claiming even to have goods from Vinland. Knowing Fitbjorn's proclivities, Sigurd had decided to make a trade for his lord and started heating water when it was settled. Fitbjorn emerged from his tent, the lord's tent, and was immediately met by the meal fire of his camp. These were his tents, his warriors, his people. He felt a grand sense of home here, in this foreign land. "Lord White Bear? Sigurd, good morning. What is it you have there?" Sigurd smiled his gap-toothed smile. "My Lord White Bear, I have coffee for you." "You what? How?" He took the metal cup greedily and had to hold it by the top rim for the heat. Go fuck, that's hot! Take my seat, Lord, he said, standing. No, no, I shall sit upon the soil of this land. He sat down on the ground and put the cup onto the stump that made for a table. He blew over the lip, and the steam flowed into the air. Don't worry too much for it, Lord. I won't be having any. For you, though, I have enough for another few days of mourning like this. Fitbjorn smelled the black drink inside. This is my favorite time. Here, with my warriors. Good food and good drink. Fighting every other day and winning victory. Glory and honor and plunder and songs. These are the best of days, I think. These are what it is all for. And the rest of the time between, the quiet moments where there is nothing but work. Those times are needed, ever to make all this possible. He took up a handful of his tunic and grabbed the cup. That is why I do not lament them. Never shall I. The coffee was hot and strong and delicious. I don't know how you drink that shit, Sigurd said. I can't stand it. Fitbjorn laughed. I used to not like it at all. It took me a long time, but now I'll have... He cut off as he saw a group of armored men walking through the camp. 3 would split off from the pack at times, and they were making their way to each long-ship camp. What's this now? Asked Sigurd. 3 of the men split away and walked into their camp and began speaking with Ausmund, who stood by the first fire there. Ausmund turned then and pointed at Fitbjorn, which made his stomach drop. The men then walked up to him, but he did not stand yet. You're the White Cloak, the man asked. He had long, greasy black hair and a noticeably ugly face, and looked simultaneously distinguished and unkind. Why do you ask? Your man back there pointed you out as Lord. He said the one sitting. Are you White Cloak? Damn it, Desmond. You couldn't have just said over there so Sigurd could take the place, he sighed. I am. I command these ships, he said reluctantly. He reasoned, though, that if the king had asked for him, they would show more intensity than this. The king, Harold, has requested the presence of all the lords and captains. He is holding a grand council to discuss prosecution of the war. You are requested to join. He has invited you also with a cup of his personal wine from the Levant. Fitbjorn held onto his cup and stood, taking another sip. Well, good. Nothing puts me in the mood for drinking quite like drinking. I will come now, and I'm honored to have the king's offer. Fitbjorn left with the 3 men, and they followed as his personal entourage. It felt like he was given a royal guard escort, and leading them definitely felt important. The glances of curiosity and looks of respect he earned from all the warriors flattered his ego immensely. They arrived at the king's table, a large wooden construction that was brought by ship all the way from Nidaros. There stood the king, that fucking man Harold, leaning over the table that was strewn with letters and notations and drawn maps. This hot? You call this hot? Boys, you have no idea what hot is, Harold was saying as Fitbjorn arrived. He made a point to keep himself out of Harold's view and hoped he'd be able to do so the entire time. In the desert, down in Phrygia, or the Sicily, or even Anatolia, heat is a part of life. The cool night air is a myth told to frighten children. Even at night, I remember there were nights where we would all be sitting out in front of the long sail in the courtyard. Many nights there, on the stools and benches by the long tables, even within the palace courtyard at times, the night airs were always warm and thick. It was like honey at times, and the women, hot as the air and sweet as the honey. Hear, hear, many said. I was with you in the Miklagard, said a man. Those were good times. A cup of Miklagard wine was put into Fitbjorn's hand. Miklagard, that ancient land and the Empire's glory. Long shall my memories there serve me in the coldest and darkest winter. Fitbjorn said from his hiding place, behind a brutish black-bearded man. Well said, Harold remarked. He looked for the voice, but made eye contact with the tall lord. Well said, friend. Me? No. No, it wasn't me. It was someone here. He pointed behind him, but as he turned, there was none there to take the credit. No? No one? Well, then, fine. I said it, Harold declared to general laughter. Now then, to planning. Many raised their cups and drank the wine. There Fitbjorn stood, wine in hand, his other patting the long dagger at his side. There before him, but 3 steps away, was the King Harold Sigurdsson. How easy a thing to go and kill him. End him and his tyranny. Here and now, just go fucking do it. We are burning our way through Northumbria. The fighting, and fighting well. I know these lands, these peoples. We keep this up, and they will respond. If Harold Godwinson wants to claim to this throne to mean a damn thing, he will not be able to ignore this. He will come, and he will bring England with him. What about this heat? This is not what we are ready for, said another among the gathered lords who served here as counselors. No, it is not. This we will be able to manage. Perhaps when we are moving troop, we leave for our armor and to the camp pack, or on the ships, always within a ride's reach to be ready for battle. That is something I wished many times to do when we were fighting in the hot lands south. Besides, we haven't needed one ring of our mail yet in the fights that we have faced. These English shepherds fall like grass before my sword. There were many murmured agreements around this. Something about this stuck in Fitbjorn's mind as he heard it. He stood there, ready. He could go and have the king choking on his own death in a second, but he would be cut apart for doing so instantly. He needed to die in battle, not be executed for regicide. He would not doom his father and himself. He needed there to be a moment of confused chaos in a battle where he could slay him without his attendants seeing. Perhaps if Harold ever fought again on the front line of a battle would be best, though it was so damn tempting to do it now and here, in front of all to see, and for all to know. He would wait. He would have to. I tire of this waiting. Look now upon the map here and see this place, near where we are, to Jorvik. We should go down this river, and there. That is called the Humber, and sack and pillage there. We are raiders after all, Vikinger. This is our trade in goods. Is measured in blood, not steel. I saw we will have the rest of the day to pack this army, and will make for the estuary, and fall in on the lands. Surely this shall more provoke out this pretender king. And fly the land ravager, Calf the Skald said. I will have that written in the story that our brave king flies his mighty and magic banner to scour these lands before he puts them to gore in the flame. Then we should start the pack. Get back to our ships and ready to sail, another lord said. The king put up his hand, and all quieted. Yes, that is what what indeed I've decided we do. Ready your crews and row, and to fight. When we adjourn here, you are to set your business and ready to the crews to sail away. Tomorrow we carry on this war on England. The men all raised again their cups, and many poured out sips to whatever gods they held dear. Now, it was my intention, Lord, to ask you for position in the battle. We have not yet decided where we'll stand in pitched battle, and my force is ready to act as your famed right flank, said a captain from Trondheim. Well then, Harold replied. Fitbjorn was already gone, making back for the camps set by his long ship's crew. He'd had no intention of staying long enough to be recognized by Harold or any of the men who might have seen him in Miklagard. He walked down the thoroughfare that was made between the camps near the king's pavilion and shot speculative glances over his shoulder to make sure none were watching him. He had a cup still full of Roman wine and one of coffee, and he returned to the gathered crews of the Brynulf, the Engus Passion, and the Lumbering Cow. There he saw that his warriors were all together by the fire. Laird, laddie, Ragnar said, I gathered all here ready as soon as I'd learned you'd gone. What happened? The king gave me wine. See? He held up the cup. You, Skadhild said, incredulous. We thought you were cut by his guards. We were due to come and fight for you. That would have been foolish. The king has just decided that we are all going to sail out and continue the fight south along the coast. We have the rest of the day to gather together our camp and load into the longships. I will need you all to do so and be ready. Sailing south. Are we going to York? Asked Ragnar. Let us hope that we are. This is good raiding country. Not now. To work, all of you. Get this place packed away and ready for sailing. Aye, Lord, they all replied and jumped to the work. The heat be damned. Directions spurred their course, and the work was welcomed. He walked to just outside the camp then and stood on the road, still looking for any who might be coming after him. There was no guarantee that he hadn't been seen, and he didn't want to be taken unaware. Then he looked down the road away from the king's place and watched as a warrior walked toward him, a warrior he recognized, one with an unmistakable scar on his face. The moment was such a wild surprise that he didn't know how to cope with it and thus froze in the instant. Fitbjorn paused as he watched the Norse warrior walk toward him. Upon the man's back, Fitbjorn beheld something he didn't think he'd ever see again. There, walking toward him, was a cleft-faced man who had slung with him the axe. His father's axe, that he'd not seen since that moment where Harold fell. He sputtered in the road. The man walking toward him seemed not at all to notice that he was being so watched, dumbfounded by anyone. The man with his axe, walked right past him. Fitbjorn fought every urge he felt to complete the slash Harold's strong arm had begun so many years past and kill this man here and now. There rushed through him such a moment of emotion that he knew not what to do. This excitement was a profound joy. He had been hoping to find the final murderer and complete his revenge. He had never expected to see again his axe. That great sensation of the confluence of fate moved him again. He did not look to see, but the man who'd passed him, the man who'd carried the axe taken from the battlefield in the forest, did look back. Some part of his memory knew that man he'd walked by. Something called to him from the deep past, and it felt to him like something dangerous. Whew. Getting closer and closer. I won't be making any spoilings or spoilers of the effect, but I hope you all really enjoyed the chapter. I know I did. Yes. Next time we'll do chapter 53, and it'll be rather good. And I liked the idea of all these different pieces of all the various parts of the world coming together and allowing Fitbjorn the chance to drink some coffee. And so for that, and again, I thank you all for joining me, and I will see you in the next one.